So, this is just an essay that I thought might pose an interesting challenge to a visual artist. Has a really boring title. It's called The Smell of My Childhood. I know this smell. Just the slightest hint can conjure long-lost memories of old friends and carefree days. Like mildew in the basement, it is heavy and damp. It is weathered wood, muddy shoes, towels we forgot to take off the line before it rained, and old sheets in the back of the drawer. Putting on a clean pillowcase is heaven, if only for those first moments when I fill my soul with its familiar scent. It coats my consciousness like a thick blanket, impossible to remove on a cold winter's night, not that we would ever want to anyway. It is the smell of my childhood. As children, my brothers, cousins, and friends all shared one big room at my family's cottage we appropriately called the kids' room. It had 2 double beds, 2 twin beds, and sleeping bags all over the floor. We always had a full house. The room was dark and stuffy. The only light came from a dim-ceilinged lamp and 2 small windows which looked toward the neighbor's house. With all those kids, all the wet bathing suits left on beds, dirty socks, and the t-shirt a little brother had worn fishing 3 days straight, the smell grew stronger. Obviously, this musky stench must actually have come from us. Dozens of fishy flip-flops sitting in a pile in the doorway, and soggy ski boots lying on the heat vents in the floor. And the knotty pine cabinets in the kitchen, the ceiling stained with age, and the countertop of green linoleum, a breakthrough in fashion and technology in its day, I'm sure. It must be from the oars for the old rowboat we stored in the garage over so many long, humid Midwestern winters, and the clothes that we left outside overnight, which then spent a week in a basket in the mudroom. It might be the indoor-outdoor carpet on the porch, or the sandy stone of the house mixing with the breeze coming off the water, blowing through the old poplar trees. Maybe it is from the exposed logs that make up the living room walls, the last remnants of the cabin which once stood there, built a lifetime before my grandparents were born. The dozens of trout my brothers cleaned on the picnic table, the blood and juice of the fish soaked up by the coarse wood, and gunpowder from the firecrackers, snaps, and sparklers are part of this smell. Countless days we spent on the sailboat have something to do with it, and certainly it comes from the drafty fireplace that has never managed to pull all of the smoke up the chimney. As the oldest, I was usually the first to wake up in the morning. I crawled over the cousins on the floor and came downstairs in my nightgown and socks, where my grandmother was in the kitchen setting out cereals and making toast. Sleepy and uninterested in her answering her questions, I always took my bowl to the porch. The porch was, like the house, made of stone, and being thoroughly a part of the house, was also covered by the roof. On the south end was a wall with a large glassless window with a rusty wooden frame. Through the window was a maple tree growing in a patch of lily of the valley. At my back was a large picture window, and in front of me was the water. I loved that porch. It was where my grandparents hosted cocktail hour every day at 5 o'clock, Manhattans and wheat thins with Windschuler's barshies. When our skin was brown and dry as a baked potato, our hair wiry from the wind, our eyes filled with the dust of the day, nothing tasted better than crackers and cheese spread while we sat wrapped in oversized beach towels on that porch. I spent countless hours lounging in the folding chair, my feet propped up on the low stone wall that protected the shade from the sun. I sat out there during thunderstorms, the power of the weather beating inside my small body. I could feel the damp of the rain on the tip of my nose, but I never got wet. There were 2 kinds of summers, sunny and hot or rainy and cold, not too many in-betweens. But even on the hottest days, the mornings were cool, a gentle southerly teasing the crest of the water into an aquamarine waltz, the rays of the sun revealing millions of tiny diamonds floating on its surface. I still believe there are diamonds in that lake. That was a time when the smell of the water and the trees, dry grass, and even the rotting seawall came together with the smell of the house in one tantalizing aroma. It was so soothing and yet so intoxicating, no one ever wanted to leave. The smell of that house is every happy, sad, quiet, terrified, exhilarating moment in my little girl life. It is as familiar as grilled cheese and tomato soup. It isn't an indoor smell or an outdoor smell. It is the first thing we smelled upon arrival, and it clung to us like a sleepy toddler on the drive home. The slightest whiff can take me back to every summer spent swimming, sailing, and shopping, gorging ourselves on chocolate walnut fudge and watching the fireworks light up midnight like my dad's all-knowing flashlight. It is every cold, wet, snowy northern winter spent skating on our own private ice rink before skiing all afternoon, followed by Warren Miller movies, sweaty bowling alleys, and hot chili on the stove. Rainy falls when there's nothing to do but stay in bed and read a book, and chilly springs when the lake was still colder than mint ice cream in January, but we all went in anyway. It is every single giggle I've ever shared with my cousins and best friend. Every family canoe trip meandering down the Jordan River. Every rescue of a little brother fallen overboard, desperately struggling to keep his bologna sandwich from getting wet. It is a smell that represents the freedom of childhood. Freedom from everything except simple joy, and that was always in abundance.